In our modern landscape, we celebrate when somebody goes viral, but what happens when you do and nothing changes? Today I'm with Craig Harper, affectionately known as Harps, one of Australia's leading performance coaches and host of the You Project podcast. Harps has over 40 years of experience working across elite sport, media, health and professional development. Now, most overnight successes are the final scene of a long, unseen grind, but the public only sees the climax and not the climb. I've got a question for you, Craig Harper, in welcoming you back to the podcast for multiple times. What are your thoughts on an overnight success?
Hi, mate. Good to be back. You sound very, very professional straight out of the gate. I better try to live up to that.
I can do. G'day, Harps. Mate, how you going? Let's talk about the weather.
Well, that's what you were like before you pressed the go button. Then all of a sudden I've got some radio.
Jesus.
G'day there, everyone.
He's put on podcast voice. He's not saying, fuck. Who is
He's gone from moccasins and bloody army shorts to three-piece suit. Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, it depends on how you define success. And, we know people blow up for somebody does a video, they blow up, they go viral. I don't know why this person comes to mind. I don't even know if you remember this, but, Huck Tour girl, that girl
Huck Tour, I do remember her, yes.
Oh, you got to give him that Huck Tour and spit on that name, you get me?
Yeah, right. So we won't talk about the origin story of what she was talking about, but, she did a grab, somebody asked her a question and the answer to that and that subsequent little kind of exchange was videoed, went nuts. And so she, depending on what your KPIs are for success, you would say she was an overnight success. She went from zero to hero in some ways and from making no dough to making lots of dough. But I think there was maybe a subsequent, almost as rapid decline. I'm not sure. So for me, success is really how someone is over the long term, and it may or may not have to do with anything commercial.
I've got another one for you. Do you remember Corey Worthington?
Oh, was that kind of party kid or something that went nuts?
2016, Layla McKinnon on A Current Affair did an interview. He had those yellow sunglasses. I can still remember Layla saying, take those sunglasses off. And he's saying, why should I?
Take off your glasses and apologise to us.
I'll say sorry, but I'm not taking off my glasses.
Why not?
Because they're famous.
Because your glasses are famous.
Yeah.
So he was a household name for a couple of weeks. His parents went away. He had a party. He had his 15 minutes of fame. It was massive. I've done a Google search. He's not doing a hell of a lot. And I mean that with respect, but you look at that had millions, hundreds of millions of clicks and downloads. So it was just about going viral. That would set you up for success, but it's not. Well, in some cases maybe, but I look at you. You did a post yesterday. It was perfect timing for this, mate. The post was called "Don't Waste Your Potential." You said 40 years ago, 40 years, Harps. Geez, you're looking fresh. Look at him, Wiz. Young.
Oh, no, look at me. I was only 6 though. I started in grade 2, so that's all right.
40 years ago, in brackets in grade 2, I started a thing called personal training. People said it wouldn't last. Nobody would pay. At best, it was a fad. 4 years later, I set up something called a personal training centre. There weren't any in Australia. I was told I wasn't prepared for business. I wasn't. That I was naive. I was. That I would go broke. I didn't. It would fail. It didn't. Over a quarter of a century, I set up 4 centres, worked with thousands of clients, employed hundreds of PTs, trained professional sporting teams, multiple Olympians, and found my way into the worlds of media, academia, corporate high performance and personal development. I am grateful I did the work and grateful I didn't listen to those who predicted my demise. We could end the podcast here, couldn't we? 40 years, you become an overnight success. Thank you.
It's been great, mate. Thank you.
Thanks, boys, girls. Shortest podcast that Maisie and Harps have ever done.
I think, well, for me anyway, can't speak on behalf of anyone else, but because I'm not, I reckon you'll argue this, but I would say that you are more innately talented and probably intelligent than me. I'm not saying I have no talent or no intellect, but because I've always been like at school, I didn't have great genes. I wasn't a great academic. I wasn't sporting. I was morbidly obese. And, until I lost a whole bunch of weight, in many ways, I was very mediocre and if not aiming for mediocre. But I was kind of fascinated with human behavior and initially my own ability and my own potential and my own possibilities. And I ended up losing a bunch of weight and going from a terrible athlete to not a bad athlete, not a great athlete, but not a bad athlete. You know, playing reasonable footy and doing like things that I could never have done, and building a body that was, you know, a way better version of the previous version, and going okay at a few things. And I kind of realized that for me, my mediocrity was almost my motivation, because I knew that if I was ever going to do any good, it was only going to just be work and focus and commitment and discipline and fucking courage and self-control. Because I was not, you know, I went to school with lots of gifted kids, creatively gifted, musically gifted, athletically gifted, intellectually, academically. I was in none of those groups. So for me, that's always been, ironically, a source of inspiration.
I'm thinking of Angela Duckworth's theory of grit as you're talking about that. And she talks about grit equals passion plus hard work, determination. So you find something you enjoy, you're passionate about, and then do the bloody work. Well, what I've seen in the research shows this as well, with a lot of high performers initially. So the super talented kid, the young boy or girl who's just been blessed with God's gift or whatever denomination's gift, and they get by without doing much work, and they get external feedback, hey, you're really good at tennis, at violin, at English, at debating, and you've done no work. So what does that reinforce? I'm really good and I've done no work. Everyone's telling me I'm really good, so I don't do work. And then eventually some kids like Harper, and I'm going to come back, I argue not that you are less talented, you're a renovator's dream, and perhaps whatever the role modelling environment.
Renovator's dream.
You're just
Can
waiting.
you call that? Can you use that for the title? Harps in brackets, the renovator's dream.
Done. Got it, champ. But that conditioning at a young age, it's luck. You really do play the luck lottery, and you often take the piss out of yourself, the fat kid from Moorabbin who's done good. But you had the core there. You just needed to get the self-worth, the self-efficacy exercise. So I wouldn't argue that I'm any more or less talented. You just didn't get off to a good start. And I find that with a lot of people, as you do, mate, in the parallel lives we have of coaching and podcasting and speaking and writing and working with high performers. Environment is massive where you come from, but it doesn't have to shape and dictate the rest of your life.
100%. That's a fucking great, sorry for all the swearing, Andrew's listeners, I'm very sweary. One of the questions that I'm sure you've been asked, I've been asked, I don't know, many, more than hundreds of times, maybe thousands, but is, you know, what about when I lose motivation, or how do I stay motivated, or how do I get motivated, or how do I, and I said, it's not the right question. Like you're operating on the assumption that motivation is the key to transformation. And if that were the case, well, I definitely wouldn't have done anything, because just because I'm not motivated, you know, and with motivated, I'm talking about, when most people talk about motivation, they talk about the state they're in, excitement, enthusiasm, how they're feeling, right? I listened to Andrew and Craig talk and I was so motivated, right? What happened? They had a state change. Now I'm motivated, so I went for a run, got up next morning, wasn't motivated, didn't go for a run. So there's this correlation between, you know, or assumed correlation, if not causation, between I am motivated, therefore, you know, that means I'm going to produce good outcomes. And when I'm not motivated, I won't. And I reckon the key question with all this kind of messiness around this is two key things. One, how productive and proactive and effective can you be when you can't be fucked? That very human state of, I can't be fucked. Cool, now's the time. Now's the time. Right now, when you don't want it, when you don't feel like it, when your foot's a little bit sore, when you're a bit tired, when you could absolutely rationalize it, this might, I'm not saying it always is, there's a time to chill out too, but sometimes that's the time literally to go do the thing that you need to do but you don't want to do. The second question is around your capacity to do stuff, and this is almost the inverse of 15 Minutes of Fame, Corey Worthington et al., but is your capacity to be able to do the things necessary when no one's looking, no one's cheering, no one's clapping you on, no one's affirming you, no one's telling you're a great bloke or slapping your back. In fact, no one gives a shit. Show me what you can do then, because I think that's over the long term, if we're talking about success being, not a flash in the pan thing, but rather a reflection of how we live and our life and lifestyle and relationships and internal and external reality, then I think we're looking at a long-term thing. I think it's your capacity just to keep doing the things that work, whether or not it's fun or not.
I'm nodding profusely. People watching this on YouTube will see. And ladies and gents, I love winding the big fella up because we can riff and rant. And you make me think of frameworks and maybe some dormant models that have been sitting there. As you said that, are totally aligned, Harps, totally aligned. I look at motivation as more external, extrinsic, exogenous. So it's all X. So sometimes people say, I need you, Harps. I'll listen to the You Project. I'll go to your personal training studio because you can motivate me. So it's requiring someone else to do it for you. Now, motivation can get you started. It's like a jump start of the car, but then you got to fix the engine so you can start it yourself. I'm going to get a bit playful on words, but the origin of the word inspiration, the Latin word inspirare, which means to breathe life into. So I'm much more aligned to find what inspires you, what's internalized. And then if you can link that back to purpose, that's rocket fuel. So I'm not discounting. Sometimes you do need a friendly kick in the proverbials to get you going. And I think of this, mate, with my staff and the team. We said this before we got on air, like, what would you do if you had, I just got a protein smoothie because I was talking to Harps and it's my afternoon kick rather than a coffee. And Mark at the smoothie place said, well, what would you do if you weren't doing this? I said, mate, I'd do podcasts, I'd do keynotes, I'd work with sporting teams. I'd probably just do it a little bit less at times and, just down a notch, but really doing what I love. But there's times where it is hard work. And as I said in the intro, and you back that up, success is doing shit over and over and over again. So for you, 40 years, so you can rock up and people go, Harp's so good with words. He's taken his research on meta-analysis and metacognition and makes it so simple in 2 minutes because you've worked your ass off and you've banged that nail over and over again with multiple hammers and multiple nails. So then you can make it really simple. So there's my 10 cents worth. Motivation can get you going. Don't discount that. Inspiration will keep you going. What is it that you're really aligned to?
Yeah, I love it. My similar analogy is, or metaphor is, it's a spark that lights the fire, but you're the actual fuel that keeps the fire burning, right? So I think, firstly, I'm not anti-motivation. I love motivation. I think for many of us, it's the starting point and it's the thing that creates momentum, which is beautiful. But I think we don't want to be dependent on it. Just like we don't want to be dependent on praise or reinforcement or accolades or attention. Like, I think it's almost like the currency in 2025 is attention. That's what everybody wants. They want attention, on social media, on Instagram, on Facebook, on whatever, on TikTok. It's like, give me attention, give me attention, give me attention, because then I can leverage that attention to something else that I want, and while I understand that, I think some of the greatest growth and resilience and transformation and breakdowns and breakthroughs happen in the darkness.
I'm just holding the pause. If I could cut out the studio lights, then it would have been a dramatic effect, wouldn't it, for our visual watchers? Yeah. And this is the mistake a lot of people make, especially I think the younger generation now. And I'm not beating up on Gen Y, Gen Z, millennials, all the young troops coming through. But it is different to when you and I grew up because there was no internet to rocket you to fame. But then ask that question. So you get all the downloads, but is it actually making a difference for you? Now, yes, some people can accelerate a business. It can grow a book, grow a podcast quickly. But any athlete I sit down with, Harps, any coach I sit down with, any entrepreneur, any high performer, any leader of defense who really wants to go to the next level, like I'm talking about world class, it's a decade. Unless you're a ridiculous rock star and you find you're in a current that just propels you like nothing else. And then you see whether people are really cut out for it. What, you mean a decade? I thought if I did some coaching with you and did a bit of a mental iOS upgrade, I could do this shit in 12 months. No, you're good, but to be great or to be world class, it takes you a long time. And I've got an example for you, mate, because I know how in tune you are with popular culture. So you listen to Sabrina Carpenter?
Well, don't throw me under the bus like that after you pump up my tyres. I do not. So clearly I'm not up on pop culture.
You know her most popular song from 2024, Espresso, right? She's had millions of downloads.
Yeah, shit, that's all I listen to.
So when you do the research for that, before Espresso came out, she had 5 albums. A couple of first ones were virtual non-existent. She signed an agreement with Disney. She was in a TV show, Girl Meets World, back in 2014. And she was doing acting and singing before that. So she's been 15 plus years, and then suddenly she rockets. I only know of her because I've got a 17-year-old daughter. And her friends were talking about Sabrina Carpenter. I thought I'd Google it, and I did, and they were talking. I said, I love Espresso, but what I really like is how she's grown from her Disney persona, Girl Meets World. And one of Michaela's friends looked at me, and she just looked at me really impressed, and she said to Michaela, I wish my dad was that cool. And Michaela said, no, you don't. No, you don't.
Yeah, I love that. I have a really, I think, nice story around that. So I had a guy called Jim Murphy on my show. He's not dissimilar to you. Like, he's a high performance guy, got a master's, works with teams and athletes. He's from the States. He wrote a book, I'm going to say, I think it's called Inner Excellence, the blah, 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 something like that, in 2009. I think that's anyway, his story is that you got to get him on. Like, get him on. You will love him. I mean, dude,
awesome.
you will love him. So, but here's his story. So he wrote this book 16 years ago, and it did okay, but no one knows who he is, right? And he was a budding, fledgling baseball player, got signed to a major baseball league club, had a few issues, didn't really go anywhere, ended up going back to school, did all this stuff. And so he was doing okay, but not great. So he wrote this book, and the book is good, but no one knows who he is. He doesn't have a brand. He doesn't have a profile. I don't know how many books he sells, but it's not a breakthrough, groundbreaking, world-changing book. Anyway, 16 years later, earlier this year, I'm trying to remember. I keep learning. You know, when you learn like 5 new things a day. And anyway, there was an NFL player during a game. He's one of the best players in the NFL. I think he's a running back. Anyway, during the game, this is this year, 16 years later after Jim wrote the book, he's sitting on the sidelines. You know how the offensive team goes on, then they come off, and then the defense goes on. So every time he would be back on the sidelines, he would be reading this book, this 16-year-old book that this dude wrote. And all of a sudden, the commentator's like, I've never, ever seen an NFL player reading a book during the game. And they zoomed in, and there's bits highlighted, and it's like these are his. Anyway, so this dude almost overnight becomes the biggest selling author on the planet.
What a great story. I love that.
So 16 years old, the book is. All of a sudden, he's on every major network. He's doing interviews. He's doing speaking gigs all around the world. He's talking to little fatty harps in Australia. Like, he's gone from, and it took 16 years. And it was because one moment in time, like, there was a guy reading that book. Like, he does work with good athletes. So he's, I'd say he's probably at the level you and I are at, or, but it's not like he's Oprah. Or maybe he's not quite, or wasn't quite at the level. Not sure. It doesn't matter. But yeah, and what's beautiful is he's a great guy. He is a great guy, and he is so grounded, and he is so not a fathead. He is so humble, so self-aware, and I loved him. I'm like, I'm so glad you are the way that you are, because when I read your story, when I looked at some of the TV footage, and you think, I hope this guy's as good as he seems, and he was even better. And yeah, just a gentleman, and like, he is going to ride that wave now. But like, I've never met him in person, but great story.
Right place, right message, right time, right bloke, grounded, and he'll just accelerate. I'll get his details, because that sounds a phenomenal story. And
yeah, good story.
Totally backs up this, doesn't it? That yes, you may become viral, which is a new term, but viral does not equal long-term success or sustained performance. So got to ask you, do you have a definition of success?
All right, then I've got a question for you.
You know what I love when we do podcasts? Even you sent this through to me. Who's interviewing who, mate? I said, I don't really know. I'll
Well, you said,
put it on mine.
Do you want
and
to
then...
do you want to do a podcast? I go, yeah, sure. When? And you're like, tomorrow. I'm like, okay, who's interviewing who? Like, I don't care.
Well, it mixes, right? It mixes.
Yeah. Look, success for me is not a thing, but it's a few things. And I think like this is a really interesting conversation because, and this is true for many things, like success for me will not be success for someone else. I might say, Andrew, when it comes to personal health, what is success for you? And you go ABC, and I go, all right, tell me what success is now from a career point of view, and that's something else. And I go, now tell me about your relationships. How do you know if that is a successful part of your existence or it's where you would like it to be? And so I think success is for me, it's not a global thing. It's a bunch of things because my life is not a single thing. It's a composite of things. And also, I think for the individual, what we deem to be success or our version or our, I guess, description of success will vary over time. So if you had said to me, Harps, what are you, when I was 30 and I owned 3 gyms and I had 100 staff and I owned 2 other businesses and all this stuff was going on and I was in the gym and I was like the captain of the ship and it was high energy and it was all bloody, dumbbells and giggles.
And you were jacked.
Great.
Come on, I've seen photos of the old Harps. You were a weapon.
I was jacked and full of ego and bullshit. And, for a while there, I mean, it was just amazing. It was beautiful. There was great energy. But then there came a time when I'm like, yeah, no, that's enough. Yeah, this ain't what I want to do anymore. It's not that it's bad. It's not that we're doing anything wrong. This doesn't meet the need in me that it once did. I still want to work with people and help people and be of service and value. But me, setting the bike seat for Donna and, counting reps for Barry and, fucking spotting John on the squat bar, it's not my thing anymore, We have
a lot of fitness trainers and personal trainers listen to this. There's a little bit more than that. So I interrupted you. So definition of success has changed for you. It's evolved.
Yeah, I think it's fluid. It's like for some, like I realized when I was in my 20s that I don't want a job. I don't want to work for someone. I don't want to clock in at that time, clock out at that time. Not because that is bad, but because it didn't work for me. I didn't find a lot of joy in that or fulfillment in that, and I couldn't grow in that. And I wanted to do something where, and I'm sure there were some employee-employer situations where I really could have grown, but not that I had experienced personally. And so, for me, that success is about, getting better in a way. It's about learning and growing and evolving and, waking up at 61 and going, hey, I'm not shit. I'm not falling apart. My brain works. I mean, I can't be objective, but as objective as I can be, I think my brain is better than it was when I was 40 or 30. I think I'm, there's obviously deterioration, which is inevitable, physiological deterioration, but I'm still pretty fit and pretty strong and pretty healthy, and very grateful for all of that. So just trying to work well, Can
I double click on that? And then,
sure.
Then I want to talk about success. And then you said you've got a question.
I actually think that the way that we think about age is really unhealthy. I believe that your mind has a massive impact on your physiology. If you think something bad's going to happen, but it's not going to happen, you think you're in danger, then all of a sudden your body's changed, sympathetic nervous system, endocrine system, all that stuff, blood pressure, adrenaline, cortisol, respiration, everything's through the roof. Like just a thought can have a negative physiological consequence. And when your story is, this is my age, so therefore my options are now this, when that's not actually true. Of course, there's an inevitability about physiological aging, of course, but the variable is how we age and the rate at how we age. And also, Your Honour, while I'm pleading my case, the 50-year-old who's never really trained, who starts to train, is going to get better. They're not just going to kind of maintain, they're going to get better. And you think about how many people consciously train their body. Quite a few. How many people consciously, and I mean intentionally structured, reasoned application, train their brain? Almost none. Almost none. And your brain is exactly like the rest of your body in that it will deteriorate if you're not doing something to stop it from deteriorating. And so for me, part of my reason for doing a PhD is like, oh, I know so much stuff, not because I'm brilliant, not because I'm smarter than anyone, but just because I've been through this multi-year process where, I went into an environment where I was totally inept. I'm not even being metaphoric when I say I was literally the dumbest one in the room. I couldn't speak the language. I didn't understand the culture. I would read academic papers. I would have to reread one page for an hour to understand what the paper was saying. I didn't know how to write at a PhD level. And that's among all the other things I've been doing over the last 5 years. And it's just because, I'm so excited about, and this is not bullshit for a podcast, I'm so excited about what I can do. Not what people think of me, not how much money I can earn, but just what I can do. Because I think our limitation is not our potential or our capacity nearly as much as it is our thinking about our potential. Like we have age-related thinking. And then we have people going, oh, well, at your age, you're shut the fuck up at your age. Like, stop it. I mean, my training partner just turned 60. He looks like a fucking freak. And he rides an hour and a half, 2 hours a day on his bike. He's still works. He still does stuff. He trains. He's learning all the time. He's always researching. He's always doing stuff. He's got 3 kids. He's got a wife. It's not like he's self-centered. He's not. And he inspires me. He's, and he's a year and a half younger than me.
Your body language, everything ramped up, your volume. We've hit a hot button.
My question to you is, I just want to circle back to one thing we spoke about. 15 minutes of fame. Everyone wants to be. Literally, I did a talk at a school a few months ago, which I don't do many schools, but it was year 10s. Private college, of course it was. And we spoke about, the why and what and how of goals and stuff, very basic. And I just said, I go, why don't you five of you tell me what your goals are? I said, I need 5 hands. 5 hands went up. 2 of the 5, you know what their goal was? To be famous. That's their goal. And now I'm not judging that. I'm just curious about that.
It'd be also in that generation, it'd be YouTubers, Instagram.
Yeah. Why? And they're like, what? I go, why? So you want to be famous? Why? Neither of them could tell me. I think people confuse fame or even popularity with love. Like, I've got a reasonably high profile. I'm definitely not famous, but, in Melbourne, I'm moderately well known. But I don't confuse that at all with friendships or real connection or love or, it's like, I reckon if you have 5 people in your life who love you unconditionally, you're doing great. So what do you think about fame? What's the drive? Why do people want that?
I'm going to try and tap this into my definition of success and try and wrap 2 open loops up together. So this is either going to go, our audience will go, that makes sense, or they'll go, he totally stuffed that one up, old Symbols dropped a sitter. I think there's 2 definitions or 2 origins of success. One is external, and that it can be aligned to your performance-based identity. I perform, therefore I am. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. You and I have worked with hundreds collectively of athletes, thousands of people, tens of thousands, who have been driven by a performance-based identity. Yeah, and that is external and extrinsic and get rewarded with money and fame and cash and accolades and love and relationships and all that stuff. And there's nothing wrong with that. But where I spend a lot of my time, and I know you do, is then trying to stitch that together with more internal, intrinsic, inspirational. And that's a purpose-based identity. And that's who I am in this world and how I contribute. And for a lot of people, they go, purpose, mate, I'm too busy, tired, distracted, I can't go there. Well, just look at meaning. What gives you meaning? So I think they're the 2 definitions. And this is not new because you look in the literature. You've got eudaimonia and hedomonia. The eudaimonia aligned to the Greek word or philosophy of being connected. And it's more than you. And hedomonia is all about just you and power and kudos and everything else. So to me, I think there's a beautiful diagram, like a Venn diagram, and you can have them both intersecting. So do I want to build a business and make money and have a nice house and a car and have some experiences? Absolutely, Harps. Absolutely. But is that the only goal? No. Because the first 40 years of my life, I was so performance-based. And then, my story, I went through a marriage breakdown, living in a big house, big cars, water views, 2 kids, and I was miserable because there was nothing for me. So to me, it's the stitching together of the two. Now, if you do that, it's sustainable. If you do that, it can be really impactful because then you're living on your terms, your purpose. So then what is fame? Fame could be the barista in a small country town who makes frickin' awesome coffee that keeps everyone awake, but more so connected first thing of a morning. Or fame may be getting millions of record sales and downloads. But to me, it's stitching the two together. So I think you can have external success, but you've got to be grounded in a set of values. And the purpose is bigger than you. It's future focused and it excites the living daylights out of you. I've just gone pretty deep and broad with you. So to me, it's those two definitions or identities, the purpose-based identity and the performance-based identity. And I find, I'm sure for your audience and my audience, a lot of them will understand the performance-based identity because that's the scoreboard that we're measured on. We're measured on this. You make the team or you don't. You score the points or you don't. You get the girl or the guy or you don't. You get the metrics at work or you don't. So life is very much performance-based. And I think for a lot of people, you've got to adapt to that and work with that. Why we have so many people, though, who earn so much money. I've worked with a couple of billionaires and they were miserable bastards because they developed nothing about the heart or about the connection or the purpose. I'll draw a breath. There's a very long answer to a simple question, Harps.
No, I like it. I think identity is a really interesting door to open because we often attach our beliefs or our talent or our capacity to win or whatever it is. It's like, obviously religion's a big one, but when you believe something or you think you believe something or you do believe something or you think you know something, you think you're right about something, you think you have the answer, you have insight that other people don't have, and that becomes intertwined with, if not truly representative of your identity, then you make yourself pretty much unteachable unless somebody is echoing your same thoughts, right? And this is, of course, confirmation bias and the famous old echo chamber. And, it is, two things are, I think, true in most people. At the same time, we say, oh yeah, I want to be a better version of me. I'm open-minded. I love learning, da-da-da-da-da. But at the same time, we are pretty much fucking rock solid, unteachable on certain things because we think that we absolutely know. When we don't know, we don't have knowledge, we have belief. We have faith and belief are good things. But it's like, I've probably said this to you at some stage and maybe your listeners, but I grew up and it's not about religion, it's about thinking, it's about metacognition, it's about understanding why you think the way you think and understanding why you have such a fear-based emotional attachment to an idea or a construct or an ideology, because you are the ideology. And if someone attacks the ideology or thought or the belief, then you feel attacked. Now, when you are intertwined with something else that isn't you, especially if we're talking about a theoretical construct, it's very, very hard to truly be objective and aware and conscious because you are always looking at life through the window of or the filter of, I am a vegan, I am a Catholic, I am a whatever it is. Not that being a vegan or a Catholic are bad, of course, but it's
hello to all of our vegan Catholic podcast listeners.
But do I have self-limiting beliefs? Yes. Do I look? I mean, this is the point. I'm saying this for me too. I'm saying I was also, I don't know if you know this, but I went through a phase where I went to a a fundamental born-again Christian, tambourine banging, rafter swinging church for years.
Well, just on that, people can go back in our backlog on the Performance Intelligence podcast. The not most recent one, I think the one before that. Do you remember the title? I think it's the best title we've ever done in a podcast. It was Jesus, Jazz Hands and Jizz.
That's right. That's right.
Remember?
Yeah, sorry, I had a lot of
great.
conversation. But there were times when if you tried to even talk to me about something that was an alternate theology or theory, I wouldn't have listened to you. Right? And that is all about me. That is all about, and I understand that. So I'm not saying don't believe, don't think. I'm not saying that. I'm saying if we truly want to be teachable and cognitively and emotionally and even spiritually malleable, like that is where we are open to learn. We are okay with being wrong. We are okay with not knowing. Here's an idea: when someone asks you something and you don't know, go, I don't know. The end. Not, it's like there's so much shit. If all there is to know is an ocean, I'm a drop of water in that ocean.
When you
and
do
probably
that,
not even that.
I find I wouldn't have done that in my early career because I thought, no, I've got to be this omniscient, omnipotent person pretending. It's bullshit. It's a facade. When you say to someone, hey, I don't know. I had an athlete last week and a coach actually talking to both of them. They asked me something. I said, okay, that's a really good question. I'm not sure. Can you give me a bit of time to go and check on that and I'll come back to you? The athlete left and I was with the coach just having a coffee. He said, that was really refreshing. I said, what? He said, when you just said, I'm going to go and check that. I said, well, I didn't know. I wasn't going to make it up. We were talking about something pretty serious to this athlete. I said, it's totally negligent of me to make that up if I don't know. That comes with age. And just to wrap out on success, because I want to talk a little bit about hard work, which is non-sexy and boring and, as you said, done in the shadows. What if we got our listeners and our viewers, so our collective audience, to just sit down and write down what is success for you? Grab a beverage of your choice and just sit down for 10 or 15 minutes with no distraction and just ask that question. What is success? Or a statement, success for me is ... Now, I gave you that definition with two nice circles crossed over: purpose-based identity, performance-based identity. But mate, it's taken me lots of highs and lows and stuff ups and fuck ups to actually put that together. And a simple one for me is making sure I'm making a contribution to the outside world, connecting with my loved ones. And from a personal point of view, it's engaged and feeling like I'm being juiced. So it doesn't have to be high level, high science, high tech. It's what is it that defines or delineates success for you? And you know what, Harps? You've been on this planet just a little bit longer than me, mate. But the more I deal with people, the more I just realise we've got to help people with a framework, because we don't get this manual on how we work, and we're freaking complicated and complex, and we're becoming more so with tech and AI, and there's a whole bunch of stuff on that as well. AI, yes, it's helping you be more productive, but it's killing your brain if you don't work it. But we really do just need to sometimes come back to fundamentals and go, what is it? Like, what is going to make me happy or fulfilled? And what is success to me? And then reverse engineer it, set your life up for it, rather than just getting into this slipstream. Before you realize, you wake up 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years later, living someone else's life and go, shit, what was that?
Yeah. Look, I think that's a great question to ask. And I think another question to ask, so one from Andrew, one from Harps. My question is, what are your values, and is your life a reflection of those values? So for me, values are just the things that matter to you most, and you can't get it wrong because they're your values. But so I would say for me, things like, physical, mental, emotional health, that's a value. Looking after people that I love, my parents being elderly right now, that's probably my number one value at the moment. Having a purpose bigger than me and being of service, which Andrew spoke about, that's a value for me. So I think, and it sounds cheesy and cliche, and we can all go, oh yeah, of course it is, because you're on a fucking podcast. Yep, I get that too. And have I ever been a selfish, self-centered, thoughtless, lacking empathy individual? Have I ever? Yes, sure have. Do I ever do that now? Sure do. I try not to. I try to be more aware. I'm one of the most flawed people I know, but I'm okay to say that, and I'm a work in progress. But what having clarity about our values does, it helps us make decisions as we navigate life, where we go, oh, here's an opportunity, or here's a decision I've got to make, or here's a situation I've got to deal with. Well, these are my values, so it's clear. It's clear what I need to do or not do. It's not easy, because sometimes some of those opportunities are financially rewarding, but they don't align with my values. And I think we've spoken about this, but I've had a number of probably 5 or 6 or 7 really good commercial opportunities on my show that I couldn't take. They were financially good opportunities, but they just didn't align with what I think and what I believe. And I definitely couldn't sell that stuff. So I went, I would love your dough, but I can't sell your stuff. But, and so was it easy? No. Was it clear though? Absolutely.
It's now a perfect segue. We're going to take an ad and we'll be back to the program shortly. This program with Craig Harper is sponsored by Hard Rock Erectile Dysfunction Treatment. You having problem getting it up?
You're an idiot. You're an idiot. Well, that I'd certainly sponsor that.
I watched you.
Sure.
Sorry, I watched you then going, hey, Shiny Head didn't tell me he's now bringing ads in. You were thinking this guy's gone next level. Hey, you thought I was serious? Then I was bringing in an ad, not talking about Hard Rock.
Well, close enough. Hard rock, hard something. And yes, it's...
Rip Van Winkle, that's where we were going, wasn't it? Yes, that's right. See what you do to me? You make me feel intelligent and playful and silly all at once, Harps. You're an influence on all sides of my spectrums.
Don't blame me for your bad behaviour. You take responsibility.
We've both gone a little bit red. All right, we'll take a breath. Rip Van Winkle, a fictional character from a short story by a dude named Washington Irving, published back in the 1800s somewhere. You know the Rip Van Winkle story? He's an easygoing dude. This is I actually dug this up because I've been saying for a long time, Rip Van Winkle, it takes 15, 20 years to become an overnight success, but I'd never looked at the origin story. Do you know the origin story?
No, tell me that. Like, I know of the story, but I really don't know the story.
Yeah, so I thought in preparation for chatting to you, I'm going to use Rip Van Winkle. I better actually find out about the old Vanster himself. So this is what the information says. Rip is an easygoing man who wanted to escape his nagging wife. Please, any of our audience, do not shoot the messenger. This is what it was saying. By wandering into the mountains. He had some mysterious liquor given to him by strange men. He fell asleep and he woke up 20 years later. When he returned to his village, everything had changed, including the fact the American Revolution had taken place and people barely recognised him. He felt confused and out of time. However, the overnight success part of this relates to a metaphor used to highlight the illusion that someone becomes successful out of nowhere, or the public perception of a sudden transformation without acknowledging the long passage of time and the changes that happen quietly in the background. So Rip comes back and it's changed massively because he's been asleep, so he didn't actually see the subtle changes. And it's also the idea of waking up one day to discover the world finally sees your success. Rip had been involved in a fair bit of planning in the town in the early days, even though the process had been happening the whole time. So the Rip Van Winkle effect linked into Craig Harper. Just give our audience who don't know you just a bit of a highlight of some of the successes and stuff-ups you've had. How many podcasts, how many businesses?
Really?
Like
So-
bullet point, if you because someone would say, you got one of the most downloaded podcasts in Australia. Awesome success, great speaking business, but give us the reality.
So I get about between 6 and 8 million views every 30 days on my Instagram. So that's pretty good. I've written 7 books. I've worked on telly. I worked on Channel 10 on a show called The David and Kim Show, a morning show for 3 years. I did a weekly spot on there. I worked in commercial radio, set up the first personal training centres in Australia, as you alluded to, wrote the first course. I didn't go to uni till I was 36 for the first time, so there's some encouragement for you older wannabe students. Spoken all over the world, spoken in about 30 countries. Yeah, just a lot of fun stuff. And for me, I feel like my biggest achievement in this kind of workspace is creating a model of work that doesn't feel like work. Like, I genuinely just love the stuff that I do. And the other day I went into state and I got stopped twice, once at Brisbane and once here in Melbourne. And both people said essentially, Harps, follow your stuff, love your stuff. You're great. So appreciate you. I know you don't know me, but you've had an impact in my life, and thanks. And one of them was a dude, the other one was a lady, and he goes, "Can I give you a hug?" I'm like, "Fuck, bring it in, bro." So I'm at the airport, I'm hugging a dude. I didn't cry, but I was about fucking 2 nanoseconds away from crying. And I got on the plane and I thought, this is why I love my life. Like this dude had struggled with addiction and all this stuff, and he's just in a really good place. And clearly I didn't do the work, he did the work, clearly. But just being a little part of that journey for me, that stuff is, that's always for me like way more meaningful than than any kind of financial reward or commercial success. But yeah, so lots of stuff, lots of years. Yeah, it's been fun.
If you were a record, that's your top hits, that's the A side. Flip the record over, what's the B side? What are some of the stuff ups and the setbacks? Like, how many different podcasts did you have until you got You Project?
Yeah, so I had 3 shows that didn't work. Even the first 200 shows of the You Project, I was losing money. Oh, yeah. I mean, my theory is you can't become a black belt without being a white belt, right? You can't get good at what you won't do. You can't master what you avoid. So everything that I started, initially I was either absolutely fucking terrible or very mediocre. But how do you get good? Well, you get good by keeping showing up. So I remember my first speaking gig, I was 26. It was in a timber yard. It was to 30 employees in their lunchroom. The guy that owned the timber yard was one of my PT clients. I was terrible. I was absolutely shitting myself. I couldn't string 4 words together. They hated me. They hated it. They couldn't get out of there quick enough. But I had this weird sense of, okay, I've done one. That's the worst I'm going to be. And that was the worst I ever was, right? And then there was still a lot of stuff ups. Like, you have to be, if your compass is set on comfort and instant gratification and certainty and familiarity, that's the best possible way to not develop, to not grow, to not learn, to not build understanding, awareness, and resilience. So I've made way more fuck ups than I've had successes. But when as we do, we reframe shit and you go, yeah, but what did you learn? Well, I actually learned a bunch of stuff. Like, I learned setting up Harper's, right? There were no personal training centers. There wasn't even a course or an accreditation. There wasn't insurance. Like, I'm setting up this thing. I don't even have a single person in a country of whatever it was then, 20 million, that I can ask for advice, because no one's done it. And I'm 25 or 26 at the time. I'm not a businessman. I don't have a degree. I don't understand leadership. I don't understand dealing with councils and lawyers. And I don't, it was just dive in the deep end. He actually can't swim, but hopefully he won't drown. And I so nearly drowned 100 times. But, that's kind of what makes you.
And any person who's had success over a sustained period of time is going to say the same thing. It wasn't just rocket ship taking off. It's setback, hardship, motivation, fuel. But we sort of come back to hopefully a link to where we were before. Knowing what's important for you, being values aligned, it's going to be the rocket fuel that keeps you going. Because if it's just all for the clickbait, hey, I've got this many likes, or it makes me feel good, that stuff's going to run out very, very quickly, isn't it? As a fuel source.
Yeah, definitely. I think you need to be, intrinsically motivated and really that, like, I was an only child. I was insecure. I don't know if I actually had a big ego, but I was very insecure. I was very fearful, and I was probably sociologically kind of needy because I didn't have brothers and sisters, and my mum and dad were amazing, still are amazing people. But ironically, we were never super close. It was like growing up in my house was like living with an auntie and uncle that were great, right? There wasn't this super close, emotional, warm, fuzzy connection. So yeah, I was a pretty insecure, and I would say, I've probably still got bullshit going on, but up until I was 30, I was really like psychologically and emotionally dealing with stuff on a daily basis while role playing, the cool, confident guy to the world.
I genuinely mean what I'm about to say. I am glad you pushed through. I really am, because you're been a mentor and inspiration to me. You would think I was going to take the piss then. I really mean what I'm about to say.
I was hoping.
You are.
Once you get serious, I don't know where to look.
Right, let's do the hey one. I genuinely mean what I'm about to say. You're an absolute tool, Harps, and we love looking up to.
Yeah, that's better. Isn't it funny that I'm more comfortable with that than
We've had this chat before, and I didn't do that purposely. But here, let me say it. You have been a real mentor of mine, and a mentor doesn't have to be someone live. You can get a mentor through a podcast or through a book. But the origin, I came up to you, I was 25, full head of hair, fitness conference, you know the story, and said, "Oh, you're Craig Harper, I'm Andrew May, I'm from Hobart. Can I have a chat?" He said, "Yeah, look, I'm having lunch, son, come walk with me." So you opened up then. I don't know how many thousands of people you've opened up to your studio. I've heard a similar story from a whole bunch of people. You're very giving. I'm really grateful that you pushed through, because you've done the hard work. You've the Rip Van Winkle times 2 and a bit more. And then you have the compound interest. But I want to talk about one topic before we wrap up, and that's the notion of when do you know enough is enough and I walk away? Because more discretionary effort, more time invested in this, it's actually not going to help. So while there's glory in persistence, there's also wisdom in pivoting. And knowing the difference around what separates obsession from evolution is really, really important. I have an example personally. For me, it was running. I stopped running at 28. I had 2 goals, break the 4-minute mile and to go to the Olympics, and I did neither. Could have I run faster? Yeah, I reckon I could have got my 1500 time down maybe another 4 or 5 seconds. Would have taken a couple of years. Did I have the heart share, passion, commitment, discipline to do that? God, no. I had just run out of energy. So the best thing for me at that stage was actually to stop. And this is interesting, Harps, as far as having a career and a life outside of just being a runner. Mental toughness is misconstrued as just being about resilience and grit and hardiness and all those constructs. You know, William Wallace, but they won't take our freedom. He charged or she charged through fiery furnace and saved the people and their children. But mental toughness, the other side of mental toughness, is knowing when to give up, because that frees you up to go into other areas.
Yeah, I would reframe it. I wouldn't say giving up. I think I know what you're saying, but I would be like, yeah, this doesn't have the same kind of feel for me anymore. It's not that important anymore. It doesn't matter to me enough. It did matter a lot once. It doesn't now. When I do a cost-benefit analysis on how much I need to invest in this to potentially maybe move the needle a little bit and what the outcome or the benefit might be, it's really not worth it. Like, I walked away from personal training and I was pretty good at it and I could charge stupid money, but I think things have a used by date, mate. I feel like they have a psychological and emotional used by date for us, where I go, that used to blow my socks off. It doesn't anymore. That doesn't mean everything's got to blow my socks off that I do. But if I'm talking about, what's going to keep me in the game and excited and a bit focused and all of that stuff, then, it's got to be something that I really want to be pursuing. But the other side of that, of course, is, what are the things that I need to do to, for example, be a good son? To look after that's just not about me. That's not about what I want. That's about what I need to do to meet my mum and dad's needs, right? But I think if we're talking more from a career point of view or a trying to become an Olympic runner point of view, or I think we have this innate knowledge and wisdom that we go, nah, mate, you're probably not going to run sub 4 minutes, or you might, but it could take you 5 years, and whether or not that is the best investment of 5 years, you probably know it's not.
And do you have that grit, that Duckworth's definition, perseverance and passion? And I found I had neither. I think that's a good filter to run. Like, if you really want to go hard and keep going, are you passionate about it? Do you think you can continue to persevere? So rather than giving up, I like that correction on the words. It's more around a pivot or an evolution to what's next.
Yeah. I mean, like, if I said to you, I actually don't know what the answer is going to be. I think I do. Somebody asked me this years ago, And I answered straight away, and they're like, really? I go, absolutely. And they said, okay, so tonight you can talk to 100 people and you're going to get paid 20 grand. Or over the road at Rod Laver Arena, you can talk to 10,000 people for free. What do you choose? I go, Rod Laver Arena. I go, but I want 3 or 4 hours with them, I don't want to do a keynote. Because, and even let's say, and by the way, there's zero chance, Craig, that following that 3 or 4 hours with those 10,000 people, that there's any commercial benefit for you, right? I'm like, yes, I don't want anything, just time with those people. Me now, where I am, and back then, that's what I would choose, because that's just for me, that's the currency that matters. And I know that sounds cheesy, and yes, you got to pay the bills and you got to feed the kids and you got to pay for school fees and you got to put gas in the car, and I get it. And of course, those things matter. And of course, I am privileged. I realize I'm privileged and lucky or blessed or whatever you want to call it, that I'm in a position where it's not week to week, desperate kind of finances, you know. But yeah, that's how much I love this. And when I met you all those years ago, and again, this sounds like bullshit, but I realized really early that if I was selfish, 1, I wasn't a great person to be around. 2, I didn't like me. And the best version of me is the version of me that wants you to be great for no reason other than I want you to be great. I want you to succeed. Even if I fail, I want you to succeed. And, you know, there's a term. Here's a term for you. You've taught me, you taught me inspirare today. I wrote it down. I'm teaching you one. It's called Schadenfreude. Have you heard that?
The opposite of that would be Mitfreude.
I don't know what that is.
So Schadenfreude is pleasure through other people's misery.
Yes.
Mitfreude is pleasure through other people's success. You're a mit.
Well,
not a shard.
Yeah, that's me. Wow, you taught me something. Yeah, and so for me, that, like, when I'm involved in someone's growth or success or happiness, and again, this sounds selfish, it's like it gives me an experience that I can't through doing anything for myself. I can't have that. There's nothing I can get that gives me that feeling of helping you become amazing, or helping you or supporting you or encouraging you or seeing you do great. And I think that, like, coming full circle and being a bit weird and deep, fuck it, I don't care. I got asked on a podcast, whose was it, the other day, they said, if everything you've ever said or ever written or all the stuff that you've put out into the world was deleted and you could leave us with one message, what would that message be? Out of everything. And not leaning back into anything.
Question.
I just said love matters most. And, you know, I sat with a friend of mine 6 months ago who was essentially my second mum. I loved her very, very much. She was at death's door. I sat with her in hospital and I held her hand for an hour and a half and we just spoke. There was no one else in the room, and she died about 48 hours later. And I was sitting with her and I don't know what your beliefs are these days. I don't even know what mine are, but I'm like, all the rest is bullshit, Craig. All the rest is just stories that you tell yourself. And it's not all bullshit, of course, but in that moment I went, all I want to do is be here and love her. And like, it was the most painful and beautiful hour and a half maybe of my life, right? And you're like, I invest so much emotional and psychological energy into stuff that really, it's, you know, I know it's all context dependent, but yeah, I think if we could, and I know this isn't the way the world works, but imagine if we, for the most part, really tried to operate from a place of love. And I mean real love. I don't mean conditional love. I don't mean strategic love, because conditional and strategic love are not love. But just where you go, fuck, I'm happy for you. Fuck, I love you. I want you to do well. You know, for me, that's it. That's it. That's maybe that's my answer to what is success.
We could riff for hours, and we do. I'm going to start to close this broad-ranging discussion. I appreciate you. I really appreciate you. I really appreciate your message and the learnings I have had and continue to have from you. And I appreciate the relationship and the connection we have. And I even reflect on today. It is the 5 Ds of dodgeball. Dodge, duck, dive, dip, and dodge. We have talked about everything today from metacognition and transcendence right through to erectile dysfunction ads. I'm cracking up about the look on your face thinking, Shiny Head's put an ad in, he didn't even tell me. Oh, idiot.
And the worst part is some people will go, the ED stuff was the best.
Well, it's range, David Epstein, right? You need range. But I genuinely mean that. I appreciate you. I appreciate what I learn from you and what you give to the world. And I appreciate our friendship and the love that you bring to everything you do. So those 3 words, those very simple words, which is really deep and complicated to get so simple. You're on brand, mate.
Thanks, mate. I appreciate you, love you, care about you, happy that you're killing it and that you're doing stuff that's impacting people in a great way. So go you. Hey, listeners, you didn't expect this love fest, did you? Fucking hell, you probably need to go take a shower after this.
If we're in the airport, we'd be hugging and having a bit of an emotional
We definitely
moment.
would. No, mate, you're great. Love you. Thank you so much for having me.
And overnight success doesn't happen, right? You can have a meme or you can become a meme, you can have a viral hit. But the fundamental message to finish is twofold, love and connection. That's a little bonus that's come out of this. But to be successful, you've got to do the hard yards. Doesn't mean it has to be really difficult, but you just got to be patient and have a long-range view and enjoy it along the way.
What he said.
Love you, brother.
See you, mate.